ExitEngine. My name is Joe Stapleton. I am the founder of ExitEngine and the co-founder of Exio Advisors. Joining me today from Khaki Consulting, Mr. Steve Curran. Steve, how are you today?
I'm great, Joe. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, man. Great to see you again. Thanks so much for doing this. We're very excited today because we're going to be talking about, this is probably we wrote a post about this morning. You know, Steve, this is probably the single biggest issue that we come across in terms of founders on their way to exit, right? This
Sure.
very first stage when we first meet them, they are very often very caught up in the business, man. Like very caught up. And with businesses, especially in that $2 to $5 million revenue range right now, you're at a very particular crossroads where you've been doing everything a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
But what we always say at ExitEngine is what got you here won't get you there.
Right. Absolutely.
Exactly. So one of the biggest issues is that we see that the founders themselves are actually the biggest bottleneck in the company, right? So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about a bunch of things, but Steve's going to take us through entire workshop that he actually has on this. Obviously, it's not the entire workshop today, but we're going to go through kind of a top level version of it. And it's really great. But what the most important thing that you're going to get out of this is you're going to learn as a founder how to stop being the bottleneck and make sure you can build this business that can grow without you. Because when it comes to selling, the most important thing that buyers want is not you. Right.
Absolutely.
You being the guy who does everything. That's not a company. That's just a guy who does everything.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. The way I like to phrase it is for a lot of founders, right? You built a really successful business. You know everything that's going on there. But the question really is, have you built a business or have you built a job where you're just your own boss? Right. And so that is, that becomes one of the biggest issues, as you and I've talked about, when someone goes to sell, like if the business can't run without you, it's really difficult to sell that business because that means whoever buys it then has to step in and do everything that you've been doing. And so we'll jump into it. We'll talk about it. So, this is just a taste of a full day workshop that we do with CEOs. We call it the Scalable CEO Workshop. And it's with founders and stuff like that about how to build a business that can actually grow and run without you, how to get ownership through the company. And so we'll jump into it. I always like to start with this question: what's in it for me? So that is the question that's in everyone's minds right now. It's in all of our minds all the time. We're walking around going, why do I care about this? What's in it for me? And this starts probably in grade school. Like the first thing we do when a teacher starts talking is going like, is this going to be on the test? Right. And that continues for the rest of our life, right? We're wondering, is this going to be on the test? And so for the folks in our audience today, I would say, if you ever want to leave this business, if you ever want to be able to hand this business off to somebody else, or if you ever want to be able to take a vacation and not worry that the business is going to fall apart, then there's something in this for you. So
that's a great point. Let me just interject really there before you go on, because I just want to just get this out. I think that's an excellent thing. Guys, the biggest test for whether or not you can actually leave the business is whether you can actually leave the business even for like a week or two, right? Yeah. And by the way, when we talk about handing the business to somebody else, this isn't necessarily about you selling tomorrow, okay? This is about succession, about what happens to the company when you're done with it, however that comes about, right? Just to be clear. So what's in it for you is, what's going to be, it's also what's about what's going to happen to the business in the future, wherever that is.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So a little bit about me, a little bit about Khaki Consulting. So this is me and my business partner, Matt. I have 23 years of Navy leadership experience. Matt has 22 years of Army leadership experience. So most of the time we get along, but they're very different styles of leadership that we get to bring. Right. And so that's kind of all that I'll say about that. I'll talk a little bit about, let me do it now. So the reason we call the company Khaki Consulting is when you become a chief petty officer in the Navy, your uniform changes. It goes from the blue or white uniform to a khaki colored uniform. We call it putting on your khakis. And that is the point in your career where you have to stop being an individual superstar, right? Being an individual superstar is what got you the success to get you selected as a chief. Only 1% of the Navy ever makes it to chief petty officer. But if you want any success as a chief, you have to stop being an individual and start focusing on building your team, giving ownership to your team, and recognizing that all of your future success comes from the success that your team has and you leading that team. That's a hard transition for people to make.
Yeah.
The Navy gives you a whole 6 weeks of stand down where you don't do anything else and drills it into you. I got to go through that and got to run that for a few years. But it really is a hard transition, especially for founders, especially for people who are really involved in the business, to go, how do I go from being a superstar, which is what got me to where I am, to leading a team of superstars and handing off ownership? So that's a lot of what we're going to talk about today. So there I was, turning over command to an incoming chief. He was going to take over my team. He was going to run everything. And I had to prepare the team and prepare my department, my division, the command, to hand that over and not have any failure, not have any gap in the mission, because in the military, you move every 3 years and you have to be ready to hand those things over. And so that's a big part of why we do it the way we do it, is because you need to be able to hand it over. So what does that look like in the civilian world? Well, what if you were unreachable for 6 weeks? What if you took a vacation and actually turned your phone off? When we talk with clients all the time, they freak out when I ask them that question.
Oh my God. So hard. So hard.
Right? Could your business or team thrive without you, or would the wheels fall off? What would be the first thing that would break when you turned your phone off? And if the answer to all of those gives you angst, if it makes you nervous, if you think, oh, there's no way I could do any of that, well, then you're the single point of failure in your business. You're the bottleneck. Everything is running through you. And that's not a business. That's a job.
Right.
So the first thing we got to do is delegate leadership, which means push leadership down through the organization. Right. And so it comes with this idea of ownership versus control. So I like to use the illustration of a basketball. So you think about a basketball team, right? Whoever has the ball is the most important person on the court at that time. They're the only ones who can shoot. And when the team passes the ball around well, things flow and you get open shots and their layups and everything happens well. When it struggles, when things don't go well, is when two people try and hold the ball at the same time. And so you say to your team, hey, I want you to take the shot. I'm giving you the ball, but then you keep your hand on it. And you go, well, I want you to aim this way and turn this way. And what about this way? And you're keeping your hand and going, why won't my team take any of the shots? Well, it's because you won't let go of the ball. And it's really hard for them to shoot when you're asking them to take the shot, but you're keeping your hand on the ball. And right. This just looks like, hey, I want you to own our next supply order, right? So whatever we need, I want you to own all the office supplies that you need to order for that. But I want you to come to me and run it all by me before you make the purchase.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Well, that's still you having your hand on the ball. Right. Or I want you to own, sales and reaching out to clients, but make sure you come to me and talk to me before, you do. So again, your hand on the ball. So it's this idea of the more control you have, the less ownership is available for your team.
Right.
The more ownership you give your team, the more you pass the ball to them, the more they can take ownership and the less it is dependent on you.
Right.
So when it comes time for you to take a vacation, for you to hand the business off, it's real easy to step back because you've passed the ball, right? And they're comfortable taking the shots. So we always ask, where are you holding on to tightly? And what would it look like if you truly passed off ownership?
Right.
I always like to ask and, give folks personal reflections to think through and go, okay, so what's one area of your business where you're still holding the ball, and what do you need to do in the next month to start handing that off, to start taking your hand off of the ball?
Now, Steve, a lot of, the first thing that pops into my head as a leader and as a business owner when I hear this is, yeah, but I hear what you're saying, right? I know I need to give people more or whatever, but I don't have the right people. What if I have what I'm paying these people, what I'm paying, the reason I've made this money is because I'm, maybe underpaying people. Maybe they're not good. Control is in my mind, I have control for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So what is the mechanism? What's the best way to be able to figure out, being able to step back and go, okay, how do I let control go when I've gotten here through control?
Right. Right. So I think there's a couple of things involved in that. So one, if you don't have the people you can hand off ownership to, Then I think the hard question is, okay, so there's one of two things. Either they don't have the ability to develop into those kind of people,
Mhm.
or they're never going to do it. And maybe you need to hire different people.
Right.
Right. So we like to say it's easier to catch caterpillars than butterflies, because there's this idea of, oh, we only hire A players, or we only hire amazing people.
Mhm.
Right. What that really means is we're giving up and abdicating the responsibility for developing people and going out and trying to catch butterflies with a
They're
net,
already done. Right. Right.
right, rather than creating an environment where caterpillars can develop into butterflies. But that means it's on me as the founder, as the business owner, as the leader, to invest in them and develop them.
Right.
Sure, no one's ready on day one to take over something.
Right.
The question is, can they be ready on day 100, on day 365? And what will it take to get you there? That's the work that it takes to delegate leadership, right? That's where you have to focus.
That's right. And by the way, this is why this is the very first element within that you learn inside ExitEngine, right? Anyway, because this is the first, this mindset change is really what it takes to be able to have any hope of being able to part with the business at any point. And by the
Absolutely.
way, it also is making a healthy, sustainable business today, right? So
Yes.
as you do this, and every time you give up something, all you're doing is creating more freedom for yourself, right? As you go. And at the same time, you're actually allowing the business to flourish.
Right. Right. Because even if you never sell, right,
Right.
having a business that is more valuable and easier to sell is a better running business, and it makes your life better.
Period. Right.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So, yeah, absolutely. All right. So, the second thing we talk about is bandwidth.
Mhm.
We all have the only so much bandwidth to make decisions, to do things. We all get the same 24 hours in a day. No one gets 1 minute more, 1 minute less. This is why when people say, I don't have time, I'm a big believer in that's not a true statement, right? The true statement is it's not a priority for me right now, which is 100% fair and valid to say, but don't say I don't have time. Just say it's because, again, we all get the same amount of time. So
Right.
as we think about it, right? So there I was, right? We're doing 50 cal training off the coast, right? We used to launch a big giant red ball that we called the floating tomato. It's
Right.
probably as big as an apartment in, well, it's probably bigger than an apartment in New York City. It's probably as big as an apartment here in Savannah, right? And then what we do is fill it with holes until it sinks, right? So that's the whole idea.
Right.
And when you're shooting a 50 cal, which is really fun, by the way, you can't, there's no like sight that you can look through. You can't be looking at the barrel. You have to follow the tracer. So every fifth bullet is coated with something that makes it light up as it goes, right? You see that in the movies. It's true in real life.
Right.
And so you walk the tracers into the target, right? So you have to be following what's happening long term. You have to have a long term view, focused on the target. You can't be focused on the muzzle and on the barrel, or you won't hit the target. And so the idea around this is, if you're the bottleneck, if all the decisions go through you, how much time are you spending focused on the day-to-day things rather than long-term strategic thinking, which is the value that you should be bringing, rather than how do I develop my people and get them to own these decisions, which is where you should be focused.
Right.
Right. So it's the idea of how much are the decisions worth that you're making, right? So operators, folks focused on the daily operations, this is where we see lots of founders stuck, right? They're not actually the owner. They're not thinking like an owner. They're thinking like an operator, right? Their primary focus is daily operations. What's happening in the business today? And what we call those is $10 decisions, right? Those are because the decisions you make affects it $10 one way or the other, right?
Right.
Once you start thinking like a team leader, like how can I help the team execute? Right now, you're making $1,000 decisions. You're thinking about the growth and development of the team, and that's great. But really, what we want to get to is $10,000 decisions, right? Thinking like a CEO and thinking like, how can I scale this business without me? Where's the enterprise value? How do I build systems in place where this can run without me? So this idea of what's the ROI on the decisions that I'm making? And how do I hand off those $10 decisions and eventually hand off those $1,000 decisions so that all of my bandwidth goes to those $10,000 decisions that I should be making?
But it's a step up, right? I mean, the idea is this is meant to be a path forward, right? To
Yes.
say, hey, look, I'm starting here. I'm the operator at this point. I'm paying myself, I've, like you said, it's a job I've built, right?
Yep.
And revenue comes in and out and all that stuff, and I'm able to actually keep this thing going. I'm probably just surviving, right? Meaning that I'm in that mode of looking at every dollar, where's everything going? I'm involved in every decision, every client I'm getting, whatever that is. And the next step then is to get to the team leader spot where you can start to grow and train what you've been doing and how you've been doing it, and passing that down now to another layer of people who can now take over those growth and development jobs, or grow those people into those jobs. And then you're going to eventually get into that CEO spot, right? Where you're actually looking at that level whole thing. It doesn't happen overnight is the point, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the idea is, where are you now? And if you're in the operator stage, that's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Right. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just thinking about, okay, what do I need to do to get to the team leader stage? And then what do I need to do to get to the CEO stage?
Right.
No one launches a business on day one and says, hey, this business can scale without me, and I don't need to be involved in anything. Actually, I guess, venture capital, those are the only folks who do that.
Right. Exactly right. But they're paying for it.
But there's a cost to that.
Right.
And realistically, it may not turn out for them. So then the personal reflection, right? What percentage of your time is focused on $10 tasks? And like you said, maybe it's 100%. Maybe 100% of your time right now is functioning as an operator. I'll go back to that for a second. And that's okay. Mm-hmm. But once you know that, the goal isn't just to become aware of these things. The goal is to become aware and then make improvements.
Right.
Right. So if you go, all right, it's 100% of my time is on $10 tasks right now. Well, then how do I get to 99% and get 1% of those decisions given to somebody else?
Yep.
Whether that's, an admin assistant, whether that's a sales manager, whether that's a marketing director, whatever that looks like for you, and going, how do I give this away and reduce that percentage of $10 tasks that I'm doing so that I can focus on the higher ROI things that I should be focused on.
Right.
Now we talk about long range strategy, right? So we've got to know where we're going, right? And again, we talked about this. If you're caught up in today's fires, it's really hard to think long range strategy. It's just a pipe dream.
Yeah.
Going like, oh, this is our 5-year strategy. Well, that's great. But if you are so focused on solving today, you're never going to get there, because the tyranny of the urgent overwhelms plans. There's an old illustration. I saw Stephen Covey do it. I'm always surprised when people haven't heard this illustration before. It's the idea of a glass jar, and you put big rocks in it, and you go like, is the jar full? And nope, you can add little rocks all in it, right? And is the jar full? Nope, you can add sand. And then is the jar full? No, you can add water, right? But the point of the illustration isn't the jar's never full. The point of the illustration is, if you fill the jar with water, you can never put the big rocks in, because the jar is already full. And so this idea of, you don't have to manufacture water. Water is coming and pouring in all the time. What you have to do is, if you want to think long-range strategies, you have to put that big rock in first.
Right.
And then the water will fill up the rest of the space. And if you want time with your family, that big rock has to go in there. And if you want time, to actually do client delivery or manufacture whatever, all of those things, all of that has to go in there. Because no one's sitting around going, my calendar's wide open. What should I do?
Right. But what you need to know is what those big rocks are.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. And that's what this is about. Long range strategy about what are the big rocks that you need to be focused on. Right. So it's this idea of how much of your business is dependent on you, and what are those big rocks? And then how do I hand those big rocks off to somebody else? Right. So
those big rocks, those are this is what I want out of my life. Like, this is how much time I want to spend doing other stuff. This is my family, right? This is I want to be whatever the goal. I want to be able to get to a certain revenue level next year. I want to be able to add a product here, right? Mm-hmm. Big milestone things that are going to require a bunch of support and a bunch of stuff to be able to execute, right?
Absolutely. And it's not just personal stuff, right? It's also business stuff. It's going like, hey, marketing is a big rock. If we don't market, we're not going to grow, right? Sales is a big rock. We need to be selling, right? Operations is a big rock. All of those things go in there. The question is, how much of those are you responsible for? Again, we talked about, like, if you're an operator, all of those rocks are in there. All of those rocks belong to you. And then you start handing them off and going like, all right, this is your big rock to own. I'm giving it to you. And maybe it's made up of a bunch of smaller rocks, but that's the whole idea around it.
Right. Right. No, it makes a lot of sense, because I think, again, you're in this position of being, this is just a good system, right, for figuring this out. And I think it's to point out here, to say, what Steve's doing here, right, is to be able to show you how this breaks down, right? And he's kind of going in reverse order, but the idea is to say, hey, look, you're starting here in this place where you're doing all these things. Now you got to get your priorities straight. You got to figure out exactly what are the important big rocks that we've got to be able to do, right? And lay those things out and understand those things. And now, who do I put in charge of each of those rocks?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because in order to get to that CEO level, I can't be in charge of any of the rocks. I have to be in charge of the glass.
Right. Right. Absolutely. And what I would encourage you to do, so I use Google Calendar, right? And you can color code things in Google Calendar. And the amazing thing is it'll tell you weekly how much time you spent on a particular color. So for example, in my calendar, I put everything in my calendar. My family is yellow, right? And I don't know why, but that's the color that it is. So at the end of the week, I can see, oh, I said my family was a priority, but I only spent 2.5 hours actually doing family stuff.
Right.
Right. And that can be really eye-opening to track, those big rocks, again, putting them on your calendar, because water's coming, it fills up, right? So if I don't put family stuff on my calendar, it will get full.
Right.
And I'll just keep working. My wife tells me, you just like to work, Steve. And that's true. I do like to work. I'm passionate about that. I do. I love what we get to do. But the big rock of family is important, and that needs to be in there.
Right. Absolutely right. I think it's a great point, is to say is that we all very, very easily get caught up in this dividing line between business and home, or whatever. And the reality is that, again, so much of this is actually intertwined, and the same 24 hours exists, right? Maybe you say, hey, look, I dedicate 12 hours to work and 8 hours to sleep or whatever, and then 4 hours for home or whatever that is. However you personally want to divide it up, fine. But the idea is that you got to make sure that bucket's in there, because the 24 hours in a day you have, as you said so correctly before, is for everything, right? Not just for work, not just for whatever. And to be by the way, to be a good leader, you should have some stuff that you do outside of this too, right? Because you need to refill your cup to be able to show up for others and all that as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? But again, this is the question here is, that's on the screen right now, is how much of your business is dependent on you, right? And answering that question and being honest about it is the first step in any of this, because you got to realize for yourself that you might feel like a bottleneck, because one of the questions that's already popped up here is, that I'll do because it's apropos, is how do you know if you're the bottleneck versus just understaffed?
Right.
Because there's a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. So right, understaffing let me answer it this way, right? How do you know if you're the bottleneck versus being understaffed? I think one of those is answering this question: how much of your business is dependent on you? Right. And again, thinking about, how do I hand that off all those times? Understaffing, it can be one of two things. Either it's, hey, I don't have enough staff, and that can be legitimate. But I think the real question for leaders, the real question for business owners is, okay, so if you could hire 10 more people tomorrow, right, and you've got the funds to hire them and all of that, what would you have them do? And if you can't answer that question, maybe the reason you're feeling understaffed is because you're the bottleneck, and so much of it is up here and so much of it is dependent on you that having more staff wouldn't actually fix anything.
Right. Because you had more staff and you didn't give them anything to do. Right. Exactly. You just sat around. Now you're wasting money too. Right.
Absolutely.
Totally.
Absolutely. And we'll get into that here in just a second. Right. So So I always like to start my Navy stories with, so there I was. All military stories start that way. So there I was, right? So there I was. I was part of a damage control training team for a shipboard firefighting drill. And it's this idea of when you train a firefighting drill, there are sometimes you light a literal fire, right? Again, it's controlled, but it's the idea of you need to train as if it's real. So when we do a shipboard firefighting drill, you dress out in all of your gear. You put on the mask, you turn on the oxygen tanks, you charge the hose, you spray water, like you do all of it as if it is real, because you practice like you play.
Right.
If you don't do it that way, then when it comes time, it won't work. And the example I like to use is, so on a ship, I worked in the medical department. There are what we call battle dressing stations around the ship, which is basically a box. You open it, it's got all kinds of supplies in there to treat somebody for casualties. And the medical department has to inventory those. And then we put a little seal on it that's got a code on it. And if the seal is broken, then we have to do a full inventory on the thing. What would happen is sailors would need a Band-Aid, and they'd go break the seal rather than coming to us and asking us for a Band-Aid. And now we've got to inventory the whole box. So we over and over and over, hey, don't break the seal, don't break the seal, don't break the seal. Well, I happened to be responding to a casualty, and I hit a pipe because I'm too tall for a Navy ship, knocked myself out, put a big gash in my head. So I walk into the command and control center, and I'm bleeding out of my head, blood's running down my face. And they go running out, and they run to the restroom, to the head, we call it, grab some toilet paper, bring the toilet paper back for me to put on my head. And when the medical team shows up, they go, how come you didn't just go to the battle dressing station that's literally on the wall behind him? And they're like, well, we're not supposed to break the seal.
Ah.
Right. So we had trained them so well not to break the seal that when they should have done it, they didn't do it. Right. So that's the idea of practice like you play.
That's great.
Right. So this idea of, do you examine successes the same way you examine failures?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Everybody, anytime something goes wrong, we dig in, we want root cause analysis, we want all that. But do you do that when things are going right? Because if you don't, when it breaks, you won't know how to fix it. Right. Have you practiced handling challenges? Have you practiced dealing with hard conversations? Have you practiced what happens when a customer calls? Right.
Right.
Because when the pressure hits, one of two things is going to happen. And as the founder, as the leader, when you have a team, your posture, your attitude spreads. You either spread an attitude of calm and, hey, we've got this. This isn't unexpected. We got it. It's fine. Yes, sometimes stuff happens, but we can handle it. Or you spread panic. Like, oh my gosh, we got to do something about this. This is our biggest client. This is our biggest. And now the whole team is in panic.
Right. And of course that you do have to watch that stuff in general, right? Because I mean, it's very easy to get, especially again, when you're used to having it all ride on you, right? And those fears, okay, and we all have them, and the fear of failure or what's going to happen or losing a client or whatever those things are, they're going to pop up. And in your individual business, you may, again, at different times and different stuff, you have different situations are tenuous, right? There's a big deal on the line. There's a something's gone wrong in the past and you're trying to fix it. There's all kinds of things that can, potentially be going on there. But the point is that crises will happen, and your response, you are leading and showing the way to respond to a crisis by the way you respond to the crisis.
Absolutely. And knowing that's part of the leader's job, right? Mm-hmm. Is to know that crisis is coming. This goes all the way back to training your team, investing in your team, practicing with your team, right? That's how you get them ready to hand stuff off, right? People like to say trust is earned, but the reality is that's not how trust actually works. Trust is given. The only way to know if you can trust somebody is to give them trust.
Right.
Right. And then they either keep it or they lose it. So when people say trust is earned, what they're really saying is based upon past experience, I feel like I can give this person this amount of trust.
Right.
But really, you don't know until you give it to them.
Yeah, and the reality is it's more, it actually says more about you than it does about the other person. So your ability to trust or to give trust or to know that you can't, I don't know if I can trust you until I try to trust you.
Right.
Right. Is the thing. Most people will be like, well, I can't trust people. And so therefore right? I'm not even going to try to trust people. I can't even get past that first barrier. You're never going to get anywhere. You have to start by getting people you think you can trust, trying to figure out and build that trust. But what you're saying is, yeah, but you're going to train them into a trustworthy place.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And trust builds as they are successful, then you give them more trust, you give them more trust. The reality is this whole, like, I hear it all the time, right? I can't trust people. They won't do it as well as I can do it. I'm the only one who cares as much about it. And some of that's probably true.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is those are short-term solutions.
Right.
Right. So yes, it is easier to do it yourself than to train someone else to do it in the short term. 100%.
Yeah.
Right. Yes. No one will care about the business as much as you do in the short term. 100% true.
Right.
The reality is you're creating a bottleneck, because if all of the decisions have to go through you, if all of the trust is residing in you, if you're the only one who knows how to do things, again, this goes back to, it's really hard to sell the business. It's really hard to turn it over to anybody else. It's really hard to take a vacation.
That's it.
Because, ExitEngine is all about getting your business prepared to be able to exit one day. But there's many exits along the way, right? Just take a week off. Take 2 weeks off.
Yeah.
Christmas is coming up.
Mm-hmm.
Are you working?
Yep. Exactly right. It's about options, right? I mean, the idea is that as you develop these things, and by the way, we don't give enough credence either to the fact that as you go through these things and do this stuff step by step, your company changes, you change, you
Absolutely.
open up, right? Other things suddenly become material and other things suddenly pop up and other opportunities suddenly exist because because you start examining this a different way and you start to notice things you didn't notice before. The reality is about all of this, guys, is, again, and this is the particular one. This is why we're so excited to do this particular webinar today, because again, what Steve is saying is the first step in any of this, right? You cannot get to the place one day where you sell the business if you don't go through what Steve's talking about right now, which is figuring out how to let go, right? Now, doesn't mean you let go completely. It just means you're letting go of the things that you can let go of, bringing the people in, training them up, practicing like you play, right? Now what you're doing is you're the coach of the head coach of the team or the general manager of the team, as opposed to just being, one of the player coach who's in there trying to tell everybody what to do and then still doing everything themselves anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. There was a question that came up. So what's the first leadership function I should delegate? I'm overwhelmed and can only let go of one thing. That's interesting. I'm gonna jump ahead 2 slides and then I'll go back to that other slide, which is this idea of, so I'm a big believer in the power of one, right? We tell our clients all the time, if you take one action every 1 week, that will get you 1% better.
Right.
It will have a compounding effect. The problem with big goals is we go, all right, I'm gonna run every day for the next 30 days, right? I'm gonna run every day in December for the next 30 days.
Right.
And then on day 3, life hits and I don't go for a run and I might as well quit because it's ruined, right? But if I get 1% better, I can. So we had this tool that we use, we call it have to, want to, who. And so this is how you figure out what to delegate, right? So the first thing you do is you write down everything that you do, everything that needs to be done, right? So that is, hey, I was on this webinar for an hour watching this webinar. You can get as detailed as you want to, right? For clients who have trouble capturing it, I tell them set an alarm that goes off every 15 minutes. And when that alarm goes off, you just take a second and jot down what you were doing for the last 15 minutes. And it only has to make sense to you. Right. So, answering emails, on a phone call, one-on-one with my direct reports, whatever it is, right? You write all that stuff down. And then you categorize it one of 3 ways. So the first category is have to. These are the things that only you can do. For example, I have to go to my kid's soccer game. That's not delegatable because that's crappy parenting if you try and delegate going to your soccer game, right?
You have to hire someone to go be the stand-in parent.
Right. So that's something I absolutely have to do it. Or there are things you have to do because they are your role or your responsibility, right? So if you're the sales director, right? Or, a salesperson, I have to make sales calls. It's part of my job. If I'm the founder of the business, I have to, invest in my team. I have to have one-on-ones with my direct reports. Those are things that I have to do and only I can do them, right? Then our next category. So we categorize those things, and that list, clients usually come back with a longer list, and then we talk through it and actually shrink that list down. There really is very few things that you 100% are the only one that has to do it. Right. And it doesn't mean these are the only things you're doing. You're doing everything on this list. Right. So the second category is, these are the things that I want to do. I actually enjoy doing them. So, for example, my wife loves to garden. She loves to be outside. She loves to do all of these things in the yard. Not necessarily me, but I love my wife, so I'm out there doing them with him. Now, we 100% could pay somebody to do them. I also have a 13-year-old son. He could definitely be out there doing them, and we make him get out there with us. But she wants to do it, right? She enjoys doing it. It brings her peace. It brings her joy. She likes the end result of having a nice yard. So could somebody else do it? Absolutely. Do we personally have to do it? Nope. So it's not on the have to list, but we want to do it. Maybe I want to call every new customer and go, hey, thanks for joining. We're so excited to have you as a customer. I just wanted to call and say thank you for your business. Right? Do I have to do that? Nope. But I want to, because it helps me feel connected to the customers.
Sure.
Right? Maybe I want to go down and work on the floor once a month, right? Just to stay connected to what's going on, because I want to do it. Right? So that's fine. So now we got a list of things we have to do, things we want to do. Everything else that you're doing goes on what we call the who list or the other list. Because if you categorize it like HW, then who's another W. So tell people to categorize it in O for others.
Right.
This is everything else that's eligible for delegation. So I'll give you an example. So for me, putting things on my calendar, right? Do I have to do that? Nope. Do I want to do that? Nope. So that's something somebody else could do. Right.
Yep.
I may never hire somebody to do that. I actually have someone who does that, right? I have an assistant who does that, but I may never have somebody else do that. That's okay. Taking my car for an oil change. Do I have to do that? Nope. Do I want to do it? Nope. Could I have somebody else do it? Absolutely. But I may never have somebody do it, but at least I know I could hand that off to somebody. Now, there may be a cost to it, right? But these are the things that we call eligible for delegation. So this all goes back to that question of, if I'm in leadership, what should I delegate first? The first step is to figure out all the things that you do. The second step is to go, okay, here's everything that's on that who list, everything that's on the others for delegation. And then you do it one of two ways. You pick the one that's the easiest to hand off, or you pick the one that's the highest priority to hand off. Right. So Dan Martell has this idea of buy back your time. So it's not handing off the things that are functions for your business. It's handing off the things that will give you the most time back. So like I said, client notes, right? So we do leadership work. We work with clients. We send them a follow-up note after all of the meetings. My assistant takes my notes and sends that email, right? Could I do it? Absolutely. But I don't, because that gives me back time that I can then either be meeting with another client, doing other things, meeting with the team, investing in the team, thinking long-term strategy for the business, whatever those things are.
Right. That's a $10 thing, right?
Right. 100%. 100%. That's a $10 task. Right. So that's the way you do it. That's how you figure out how do I start handing stuff off?
Right.
Well, the first thing you do is categorize all of it, and then go through and go, okay, what's the easiest thing for me to hand off?
Right.
And then celebrate when it happens and you don't know about it. This is the hardest piece for leaders, right? So you do a great job, right? You're at the CEO level, you're making $10,000 decisions, you've handed everything off to your team, and then something happens in the business and you didn't know anything about it.
Right.
And now you go, oh, I wish I'd have known what happened. Well, at that point, you've just told your team it's not okay for them to make decisions.
That's it. You basically just told them not to break the seal, right?
Right. Yeah. So what you have to do is, when that happens, you have to celebrate it. You have to go, that's amazing that that happened. And I didn't have to be involved in it. That's exactly where we're headed.
Yeah.
That's what it looks like to build a scalable business. That's what it looks like to build a business that can grow without you. That's what it looks like to build a business that's valuable, that you can take a vacation from.
Right.
So I'm going to go back one more slide, just to cover this. So this idea of being reactive versus proactive,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so most of the time we're reactive.
Right.
What are the circumstances? What happened? What do I need to do based upon what's, versus being proactive and thinking through, like, what are the long-term plans that I need to have? Reactive is, hey, we've got a bunch of customers right now. I need to hire a bunch of people. Proactive is thinking, all right, when we're double the size, what are the things that need to be different, and how do I move in that direction and hire for that? Right. Reactive is, I just need somebody to do sales, so I'm going to hire the first resume that comes across my desk. Proactive is, no, I need someone that I can invest in, who can grow, who can eventually be my director of sales. And that's, again, we talk about putting on your khakis. It's a hard transition to make.
Right.
More often than not, you get told things, you're an A player, you'll figure it out. We wouldn't have promoted you if we didn't think you could do it. All of those things, and all of that may be true, but none of that actually helps you step into a leadership role.
Right.
You grew a great business. You hired a team because you couldn't do it all yourself, but you're given almost no coaching, no direction on how to actually grow that team. And that's what we do.
Right.
Like we say, there is a skill set you can learn. There are tools you can learn to do that. That's why our company exists.
Yeah, exactly. No, absolutely. And that's why all of us are out here doing this, right? In some way, shape, or form, is to be able to say, hey, look, we've all been there, right?
Yeah.
And so in one way or the other, and the ability to be, in the business, in the successful, exit that I made, successful in quotes, was that it was a matter of again, timing and lots of luck and stuff just kind of happening, whatever. And after the fact, I can look back at it and go, oh, here are all the problems with it, right? It's easy for us to look backwards and kind of assess whatever. The problem is, though, is that this reactive versus proactive thing is real, because the way that we look at it is always like it's a surviving business is reactive. A thriving business is proactive.
Absolutely.
Right. And so your ability to be able to say, hey, look, this all goes together with getting to that $10,000 decision seat, right? You're proactive because you're at the top looking at down the road and what's going to happen, in 3, 6, 9, 12 months, 3 years, right? Those plans, the way that you put those things into play, and then handing those individual. So we look at goals versus objectives. And the way that I've always looked at it is that the goal is the one single primary thing you want to achieve at the end. The objectives are the measurable steps that you take in order to make sure that happens. And that when all the objectives are achieved, the goal therefore is achieved, right? So, but the idea here is that you've got to be able to actually understand what the goal is. As you said, what are the big rocks? Then you got to be able to understand, okay, how am I going to, who's going to do this stuff, and how am I going to be able to break those rocks down into the smaller rocks that then make up the big rock, and have everybody be able to, or have the people in place to be able to make sure that stuff gets executed along the way. Right. Because otherwise, like we have all been, and we all start out, we are the one moving the rocks around. Mm-hmm. We are the one who is writing the copy. We are the ones who are, who's got the idea for the advertising. You know how many people that I've sat down with back in my advertising days? Okay. We're going to go back 30 years and talk about how I used to sit with CEOs while they would rewrite the CEO rewriting the copy.
Yep.
Okay. That's not a good use of your time.
No. And the reality is you shouldn't be doing it. Right. So I'm sure you, as an addict, I have a buddy who ran a marketing agency, right? And he said, you do all of this work and you go in and you present it, and then the client's like, well, I don't like purple. And they don't understand, like, I chose purple for a very specific reason. There's a ton of research behind this and all this.
Yeah.
We had
the big one is make the logo bigger. That was always the thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. And the struggle, right, for founders, right, is, again, all of this is up here, and all of these things, and you, more often than not, you're building a business for a past version of you, right? You're solving the past version of you's problems.
Yeah.
And the struggle is, as you continue to grow, as your customer base expands, the customer isn't you anymore. We had a client who was burning through social media people, right? They'd go and hire a social media person. That social media person would last like 6 months, and then they leave and they'd hire another one and they hire another one. And we eventually explored enough and figured out, like, hey, the reason this is happening is the media team is given the direction of, hey, we want to reach a younger audience. We want to reach a younger customer base. So they come in with all these ideas. And then this group of 50 to 60-year-old white guys look at it and go, well, that doesn't resonate with me.
Right. You're not the audience.
Right. And they would make them redo the, redo the campaign, redo all this stuff. And then the social media person's getting, well, it's not reaching the people we want to reach. And they're going, well,
yeah,
there's a reason why. Right. And so there's burning through them. And so it's the idea of, when you're proactive, when you're self-aware, you're going, all right, what am I trying to do? And what are the things in me that are actually going to hurt my ability to do that? And how do I fight against those things? What are the tendencies that I have that I need to pay attention to react against those?
Hey, Steve, there's a really good question here too. Yeah. We should get in, because we only got about 10 minutes left or so, but I want to touch on this. So we're obviously here. A lot of this obviously ultimately results in, I need other people to do things. Okay. But not every business is in a position to be able to hire full-time people, right, for all that stuff or whatever. So what I want to kind of just shamelessly kind of get in here right now is to talk about the fact that, the reason that we're doing this webinar together right now, okay, is this exact thing, which is to say that there is an entire, within ExitEngine alone, but out there in the world, right, an entire cadre, okay, of individual people, fractionals, consultants, okay, coaches, all kinds of different individual people out there who can help you, who have come from big corporations, who have come out of the military, who have come from places and whatever, and have done and are doing just like what Steve is doing, specific things within certain business disciplines, okay, that you can actually have on your, and you can build a bench of people that are fractional. They don't have to be full-time.
Yeah. Yeah, right. We get it all the time, right? Well, I can't afford to hire all of these people, right? Okay, so don't. Right. Figure out how to hand off stuff, how to delegate stuff to somebody who doesn't work for you full time. Like you said, there's fractional things out there. There's part-time stuff out there. There's folks who will do one-offs or contract work. They'll run a particular campaign for you. All of that, and none of that is as expensive as you think it is.
Right.
Or find other people in your life and trade value, right? There's a group I'm a part of. We call ourselves the co-conspirators just because I like that name. But the whole idea is we get together and it's giving each other ideas because we all are in different areas, right? So I focus on the leadership area. There's a marketing guy, there's a sales guy, there's an ops guy, and it's just going like, hey, I'm struggling with this. Can you help me think through how to solve it? And all I've done is build an advisory group, built a board that I don't have to pay.
Right.
I don't have to. They're there because we're giving value to each other.
Absolutely right. And so it is, and you're going to find a lot of these groups out there, whatever. But listen, ExitEngine is a place where you'll find exactly that. Just FYI. Okay. So all the people that you need, we're just doing it in this particular lens. Why? Because building a business to sell means that you are building a healthy, sustainable business right now.
Absolutely.
So, but anyway, so we got about 9 minutes left. So I just want to
That's
talk
right.
a little bit. Yeah.
This is like my last slide, right? It's perfect. So, and then we can take any more questions that come up. So this idea of, at this point, you've got two options, right? And this is true any training you go to, any webinar you go to, any book you read, any conference you go to, you always have two options. One is you go, that was great. I should really do that.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go back out and the tyranny of the urgent takes over and you keep functioning as an operator. So you leave this webinar and you keep doing what you've been doing. And then 6 months from now, you're in the same place.
Right.
Right. I have a whole shelf back there of conference notebooks that I wrote really, really important things in when I was at that conference. And I never opened that notebook again.
Right.
And you know what? I'll bet you do too.
Oh, absolutely. No question.
So that's option one. This was great. This was super helpful. I should do something about that, right? Option two, start thinking like a CEO and do what it takes to get the skills, the tools, the accountability that you need to scale.
Right.
Maybe that's joining an ExitEngine, right? And becoming a part of this community and planning those things out. Maybe it's reaching out to somebody else and
Right.
going, hey, I need some accountability. I need some help around it. Maybe it's
Right.
reaching out to us, right? But do something with it. Because, I joke that I used to be the guy in the rooms that would say the stuff that everybody said out in the passageway or in the hallway, right? And I would get in trouble for it, right? Because
Yeah.
and so my joke is now people pay me a bunch of money to come in and do that, right? To come in and say the things that everybody else is thinking and saying, but I bring accountability with it to go like, hey, you actually need to do something about this. And what are you going to do about it? So that's the whole idea around it is I'm not in this for making a whole bunch of money. I mean, we get paid well. I'm in this for transformation and to change the leadership culture. And that means people doing something with this and not just staying in this idea of that was great.
Steve, is a great point. I mean, the reality is, look, and you can say this same, you can put this slide up after every single thing, we all do all the time, right? Is to say, look, you're right. You've paid this one's free, but I mean, other things you pay for. You go out, you pay for that conference, you paid $2,000 to go to that thing, and you got the binder and you got the book and you got the stuff and you made the notes and you sat there for a day and a half or whatever you did, and you came back and you said, and the first thing that happened went right out the window because the first emergency happened, and suddenly you're like, oh, I'm right back in it. Yep. We our brains like the familiar, and again, we haven't touched on this much in this episode, but the idea of understanding that what our brain is accustomed to doing is where it wants to stay. All right. And breaking out of that, by the way, it doesn't take as much as you think to break out of it. It's like is what you said earlier on, Steve. It's one thing a week.
Right. It just takes intentionality, right? We talk about it as right hand, left hand is the way I like to talk about it. So I'm right-handed. So if I sign my name right-handed, if I write right-handed, I don't have to think. Right. I just write.
Yeah.
But if I do it with my left hand, I have to stop and think about it. It doesn't look as good. It's not as easy, all of that idea. And so this idea of getting out of your comfort zone is dominant hand, non-dominant hand, right? And going, no, I have to make the intentional choice to use my non-dominant hand because I want to get better at that skill. I want to do something with it.
That's right.
Sure. It's easier for me to just sign and write with my dominant hand, but doing it with my other hand will actually help me grow.
And here's the one thing that makes this more complicated. There's money coming over the fence. I've made money.
Right.
I'm doing it. Right. And I'm doing it the way, and I've been making money this whole time. And now I'm at, now I make $5 million a year revenue top line or whatever it is. And I'm paying myself 300 grand or whatever. And life feels good. Right.
Absolutely.
The problem is that this starts to get into the territory of the iceberg territory, right? Which is that above the nice gleam in the sun, that iceberg looks beautiful. It's gleaming. You can see it all. It's huge. It looks awesome. It's this amazing thing I've built. But down underneath the water line is where the danger lurks, right? Not understanding that where you are right now isn't sustainable. Unless you start to change into this way. You might you'll find that this top line revenue, even if you continue to grow top line revenue, that what'll happen is at the bottom, the profitability thing won't move, right? So you'll be able to, you'll keep going like this, and maybe but you won't see increase. You won't see abundance, certainly, and you won't see the kind of generational wealth that you are potentially sitting on unless you start to make these 1% changes. And they're just 1%. They're not hard. People do it every day. It's simply a matter of deciding you're going to do it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. There's a question that says, what mindset shift is hardest for founders who successfully move from operator to CEO? Right. Really, the biggest mindset shift is just this idea of it's not my job to do it all.
Right.
Right. It's long-term thinking. It's this mindset shift of the best thing I can do is hand something off. And you know what? 75% as good as I can do it, done by somebody else, is 100% freaking awesome.
Right. Well said. That's exactly
And
right.
so it's that shift of that mindset of I need to think like a CEO and start handing things off and just start with one. Just start with one thing
Right.
and then you build on that.
That's
That's the
exactly
whole idea around it.
excellent advice. Really, really good. Time for one more question here.
Yeah.
So the question is, how do buyers evaluate key person risk during diligence, and what signals actually move the valuation needle? So let me talk about that real quick.
Yeah.
Probably in my area here. But
Yeah, absolutely. You're definitely more versed in that than I am.
well, let me just again. So in general, okay, buyers are going to look at key person risk, and key person risk is not just about the one founder; it's about all the key people. But let's
Right.
just keep it simple for right now. The idea is that you're the founder of this company. You've got a bunch of people working for you ostensibly, and you're now going to sell the company. And so during due diligence, this is the period at which you've agreed with a potential buyer in a general way to sell the company. But now what they're going to do is they're going to now dive into that under the waterline, right? They're now going to dive into the business and they're going to look at all the things, because what they're looking for is, am I going to, they're looking for ways in a business that is as devoid of mitigated risk as possible. It's never going to be zero, but they want minimal risk, maximum, they want maximum profitability, right? And with that little change or effort that they need to make. That's the perfect situation. Now, there is no perfect situation, and all buyers know this, and buyers are going to get what they can get, and they've got their own agendas, okay? And each one of them has their own agenda. So there may be people that are more concerned about key person risk than others. PE companies may say, don't worry about that. I've got an operator that's going to come in and do this and all that stuff. So that might be different. But the reality is the big thing that happens during due diligence and what signals can move the valuation needle, all that's going to happen in due diligence is that the valuation is going to decrease.
Mhm.
Okay. It almost never increases.
Right.
Okay. So understand that the real way, the signals you want to be looking at are the signals that we're talking about today, because the signals that are going to change your valuation, right, are doing what Steve has instructed you to do today, right? So you can look at what your valuation now, okay, and we can give you an estimate based on if you were the CEO of this and made those $10,000 decisions instead of the $10 ones all the time, okay. Yes, that would raise your salability. Your valuation is going to be the number that everybody agrees to pay for this particular company in this particular state at a particular time,
Sure.
right? So understanding that the best way to manage that stuff, you're never going to manage it during due diligence. It's too late. What you're going to do is you're going to manage it now while you're young and while you still have the energy to do all this stuff, and not wait until a buyer is sitting there in the room doing due diligence to go, oh crap, I wish I had thought about hiring someone to do the social media piece, or just, or maybe I shouldn't be the one who has to handhold every client on onboarding. Right. Unless I love that so much that I want that to be my job with the new company, because that's the best you can hope for. Right.
Absolutely.
So those are the things. I mean, I think it matters when we talk about the valuation of stuff and how this stuff is. Doing what Steve is saying now and doing this 1% stuff is so that in 3 years from now, you'll be in a spot where you're incredibly, you're a valuable business to somebody else. Forget about what the number is. That somebody else is willing to basically say, hey, look, what you've built here is something I can take and I can now repeat, right? Because I don't need you to do it.
Even more than that, my goal is 2 or 3 years from now, you're more in love with the business,
Even
right?
better.
You love what you get to do. You enjoy it again, right? And it doesn't feel like a grind, or I have to get up and, I have to get up and go back to work.
What
If
would
it
be
feels
better?
like that, like you're going to wind up hating this thing that you built. And I don't want that for you.
Absolutely. Wouldn't it be better for you to be able to keep this business and let it run while you sit on the beach?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So, and then boy, what a story that is to tell the buyer. Yeah. I don't even do anything.
Right.
It just runs. Here you go. Anybody could do it. Right. And it's like, oh, by the way, it's a multi-million-dollar generating business that is going to be completely turnkey. Right.
Absolutely.
That's the perfect spot to be in for sure.
Right. Right.
Yep.
Absolutely. So I think we're close to our time if we're not over time.
Over. Yeah. Steve, let's talk about a little bit about, again, Khaki Consulting and where people can reach you directly.
Sure. Well, one, you can email me. It's steve@khakiconsulting.com. I would tell you I read all of those emails. I do read all of the ones that make it to me, right? Someone does go through, and if you spam me, I'm not reading it. Like, it's not going to make it to me, right? Again, have to, want to, who, right?
Sure.
That's something someone else does.
You're living
So you go there, you go to khakiconsulting.com. I'm on LinkedIn. Connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm on there quite a bit. What I will say is, if anyone send me an email or connect on LinkedIn, I'll send you, we do a free assessment on the 5 voices, which we haven't even really talked about today. It wasn't part of today's discussion, but it helps you to understand what it's like on the other side of your leadership. And that's kind of the first step towards all of these things. So I'd love to send that assessment to anyone who watched the webinar and reached out, and we'll send it to them for free.
Awesome. So you can actually, anytime you want to also email us, you can email us email me directly at jo@myexitengine.com. We can pass all this on to Steve as well. So if you're looking for that stuff, easy to get here. Just know too, guys, ExitEngine is a place where like people like Steve, right? We're all kind of hanging out here. Okay. This notion is that it's a construct, right? This is an ecosystem. And what we're trying to build here is a way of being able to take founders and put them at the center of 360 degrees of the help and assistance that you need to be able to build a company that you can actually transfer one day. And when you're doing that, turns out you're just building a healthy, sustainable company, right?
Absolutely.
So visit the way to start, myexitengine.com. Go there first. There's a video of me there. Look at that video, go through the thing. Let's get a phone call set up. Let's figure out where you belong. And then we're going to get you in front of people like Steve and other advisory partners that we have along the way. And there are all these different things that you got to do. It's not one thing, but it is about getting 1% better every day. And I think what Steve was giving us today is real stuff that we can really do starting right now. And that's the beautiful thing about what you're going to, and that's what you get at ExitEngine, real stuff that you can really do. And it's going to make a real big difference. Steve Curran from Khaki Consulting, thanks again so much for being here. Guys, you can go back and you can hear our podcast with Steve, which was really, really fun as well. You can take a look at that stuff. Steve is all over LinkedIn. Follow us, follow Steve, follow us together. There'll be more of these things coming down with Steve, we hope as well. But thank you so much for joining us today on the weekly Wednesday webinar. Really appreciate it. Steve, thank you so much for doing this. Can't thank you enough.
Absolutely. Thanks. It was an honor. Like I always enjoy doing these things. So I appreciate the opportunity for sure.
We'll do them again for sure. Thanks so much, Steve.
All right.
All right.